Thank you. Thank you all very much. It's good to see everyone here. Thank you for having me. I love coming to Paris. I love meeting all of the people who are doing this kind of work and hearing about the challenges that we all face together. My name is Jesse James Garrett. I'm a user experience designer. I've been doing this work for some time now. Some of the things that I've done over the course of the last several years, I co-founded a company called Adaptive Path, which actually was the first company to really focus exclusively on user experience design. There were companies before us who had been doing user experience as part of a larger practice, but we were the first ones to say that we were going to focus solely on this kind of work. And in the course of doing that work, we had the opportunity to be part of this growing community of user experience designers, sharing our knowledge and helping each other understand how to address the challenges that we face. One of the tools that I came up with for addressing those challenges was the first system for diagrams and notation of user experience design work, a system that I called the Visual Vocabulary, which is now used by designers all around the world. Another thing that happened along the way was I saw an opportunity to use emerging web technologies in new ways to create new kinds of design patterns. And I called that new approach Ajax, and that thing kind of took on a life of its own far beyond the user experience design community. Way back in 2000, as a user experience designer, struggling to communicate the nature and the value of the work that I did, I created this one-page description of user experience called the Elements of User Experience. I put this up on the web, and a funny thing happened. It started popping up all over the place. It became sort of a standard piece of cubicle art for web designers. It became so popular that I was approached by a publisher to turn it into a book, which is called The Elements of User Experience, User-Centered Design for the Web and Beyond. And I'm happy to report that finally, the book's been out for 10 years now, is finally available in French. So I'm very happy for that. So as a user experience designer, what I deal with every day is the intersection between humans and technology, the way that humans relate to technology, the way that humans interact with technology. And really, there's a sense in which the challenge that we face is this one, the challenge of how grandma sees the remote. As you can see, she's pretty frightened by the prospect of interacting with this device. Some of these buttons, well, she just, no clue, never saw this one before, utter mystery, forgot. And then some of them have some worse consequences: lose sound, lose picture, emit sparks, ominous smell, and then TV explodes, cause nationwide blackout, tidal wave starter, launch rocket ship, house blows up. So this is the challenge that we face. How do we make technology approachable for humans? How do we help them relate to it and help pull away from this place of fear that is often cast over people's interactions with technology? In fact, this is part of a larger trend going on in business. So you talk to, as a consultant, I talk to businesses all over the world, and everybody says, we're customer-oriented, we're customer-focused, we're customer-centered. But if you look at the data, it tells a different story. This is from a survey done by the consulting group Bain & Company. They looked at 362 different firms around the world. And they asked this question: do you consider yourself to be customer-focused, customer-centered? 95% said yes, we are customer-focused. Of that 95%, 80% said that they deliver a superior experience to their customers. But when you go ask the customers, they tell a different story. Of these firms' customers, the number of them that agreed that those companies delivered a superior experience, 8%. So there's a long way to go still. It's easy to talk about being customer-centered, but delivering experiences that truly connect with people is a different kind of a challenge. And I think that it's a big problem for organizations because it always comes back to this question. Who owns the customer? Who is responsible for ensuring that quality of experience for the customer? In some cases, it's the organizations say, well, it's the sales and marketing group, right? They're the ones who are responsible for customer communications. And some will say, well, no, it's not sales and marketing, it's customer support. They're the ones who are talking to the customers every day as they're engaging with our product or service. And then the people responsible for delivering that product or service say, well, we're the ones who are actually providing the thing that the customers are using. Maybe we should own the customer. Of course, the truth of the matter is that no single one of these groups owns the customer. They all have to work together to create a successful customer experience. And that happens in a lot of different ways now. The number of different kinds of touch points that we have with customers is growing all the time. And we have to coordinate across all of these different channels. All of it with the web as the centerpiece that all of the other channels have to link to. So organizations have a variety of different ways to get there, to get to this point where they are delivering this integrated customer experience. Some organizations look at this and they see this as a human resource challenge, that it's a matter of hiring the right people with the right skill set. Other organizations see it as a process challenge, that if they can work out what the right internal processes need to be, that will enable them to deliver a successful, integrated customer experience. And then some organizations see it as a technology challenge, that by investing in the right kinds of systems, the right IT infrastructure, that will enable them to deliver a successful customer experience. But I think that all of these approaches fall short because organizations don't ask themselves the right questions about the experience that they're trying to deliver, the right questions about their products and services. I think that the most important question you can ask yourself is this one. What is the highest compliment a customer can give to your product or service? What is the best thing for you to be able to hear them say about using your product or your service? Do we want to hear them say something like this, highly monetizable, meaning that it clearly makes a lot of money for the people who produce it? Do we want to hear them say this, it never breaks, it's really rock solid reliable? Or do we want to hear them say something like this, I can't live without it. I can't imagine what my life, my world would be like without this product or service. Isn't this ultimately what we're trying to do with the work we do? For us as designers and technologists, what we all, I think, strive for is the opportunity to be part of creating a product that has this kind of impact in the world. So how can we do that? Steve Jobs knew a thing or two about doing that, right? a long string of successes in creating products that people can't live without. And here's what he says about how you do it, how you get there. He says, when you start looking at a problem, and it seems really simple, with all these simple solutions, you don't really understand the complexity of the problem. And your solutions are way too oversimplified, and they don't work. So here he's describing an approach to product development in which we see ourselves delivering value to our users through the technology of our product. Technology as the main source of value in the product. Now, this can be a very effective strategy early on in the history of a product category. For example, this is WordStar. WordStar was at one time the most popular word processing program in the world. Kind of hard to imagine these days, isn't it? It seems so primitive. But you have to remember that at the time that WordStar came to market, it represented a radical departure from the competition. It offered value to users through this new technology, digital word processing. Similarly, this is the first generation video cassette recorder made by Sony. And again, you can look at it and you can see that this was probably not easy to use. Primitive technology, but it did something brand new in the market. The whole idea that you could record television and watch it later was a revelation to people. But then something happened with the video cassette recorder. And to understand what happened there, we have to go back to Steve Jobs and what he says about what it takes to create products that people can't live without. He says, then you get into the problem and you see it's really complicated. And you come up with all these convoluted solutions. That's sort of the middle. And that's where most people stop. And the solutions tend to work for a while. So now he's describing an approach where we have moved beyond technology as the means of delivering value to our users. And we see ourselves delivering value through the features that our product incorporates. And again, this is where most people stop, and the solutions tend to work for a while. But if you look at this, and you think about this mindset, and you carry this forward to its logical conclusion, what you get is something like this. Here's Microsoft Word with all the toolbars turned on. Now, I really believe that every product, through its design, tells a story. It tells a story about itself. It tells a story about the world. And it tells a story about the user and the relationship between the product and the user and the task. What story does this design tell? It seems to me that the story that this design tells is that word processing is really, really complicated. In fact, it is so complicated that all of the smart, talented people at Microsoft could not find a solution to the problem. Instead, what they've done is created this pile of features, and they have essentially outsourced the task of solving the problem to you, the user. Say, okay, here are a whole lot of different features. You figure out how to put them together to solve your problem. We can't solve it for you. We saw something similar happen in the evolution of the video cassette recorder. This is a later model Sony, probably one of the very last video cassette recorders on the market. And look at all of the things it does now. All of these different features intended to deliver value to users. And despite all of it, still, no one can figure out how to set the clock. The flashing 12 o'clock on the VCR is the classic example of a feature that is intended to deliver value to users, but doesn't, because users can't interact with it effectively. So how do we get past it? How do we move beyond the feature mindset? Let's go back to Steve Jobs and the third part of what he says about creating products that people can't live without. He says, the really great person will keep on going and find the key underlying principle of the problem and come up with a beautiful, elegant solution that works. A beautiful, elegant solution that works. Sounds exactly like the kind of thing you would expect Steve Jobs to say, right? Maybe talking about the iPhone or the iPad. But the interesting thing about this quote to me is that the Steve Jobs who said it was not this guy. It was this guy. All the way back in 1984. This is not a new or revolutionary trend. It is not something that is enabled by the latest technology. What it is a philosophy, a mindset, a way of thinking about and approaching product development in which we move beyond technology and features to get toward a beautiful, elegant solution that works. Now let's look at every part of that phrase and see, what does he mean by this? Well, something that's beautiful, of course, is something that we find aesthetically appealing. It appeals to our senses. When we say a product is elegant, what we mean by that is that it maximizes simplicity. It is no more complex than it needs to be. A solution is a product or a service that addresses a genuine need that people have. And a product that works is a product that can be used by its users. So when you put all of these together, what you get is an approach that moves beyond technology, moves beyond features as the way that we deliver value to our users, and delivers value through the experience that the product creates. Now, as I said, this is probably one of the very last VCRs on the market now, if you can even find one anymore. It's a product that has been made obsolete. And like so many other kinds of products in our lifetimes, it's been made obsolete by digital technology, the rise of digital video recorders. And the first one of these to come to market in the United States was a product called TiVo. Now, TiVo is one of these products that people become very passionate fans of because they say it changes their relationship to television. It becomes a product that they can't imagine their lives without it. But you know, the interesting thing is that it didn't have to be that way. You know, if you think about what TiVo was doing, so the first TiVos came out in, I think, 1999, 2000, something like that. They could very well have looked at this product, Sony's top-of-the-line VCR, and said, you know, Sony moves millions of these every year. This is clearly a successful product in the marketplace. This is clearly what consumers want. So let's just make one of those. We'll take out the tape drive, we'll put a digital hard drive into it, and that's the experience that we'll deliver to the market. They could have just as easily done that. But if they had done that, do you think that they would have the same response from their customers? Do you think that their product would inspire the same passion and devotion from their customers? I don't think so. Because what they chose to do was use the opportunity of new technology to create something radically different from what anyone had seen before. And that ultimately was what made the product successful. I want to show you another example of what I'm talking about. I don't know if this product was ever made available in Europe, but in the United States, when this product was released, this was a very big deal. This is the Diamond Rio PMP 300, and it is the first widely available digital music player. This brand new technology had just come to market. Again, this would have been in the late 90s. MP3. Something really radical. And all of the people, all of the industry analysts looked at this and said, this is going to be one of those products. This is going to be one of those transformative products that after this product, nothing would ever be the same again. In fact, in the United States, people were so sure that this was going to be that game-changing product, this exact product, the PMP 300, that the music industry went to court to ask the United States government to ban this product from American shores. They did not want it in America because they were afraid of it. But that never really came about. The product was not banned in the United States. The product came to market. But this was not the transformative, game-changing product, was it? That product was this one. Came along 5 years later. I think 3 years later, actually. It did less than the PMP 300. It cost more than the PMP 300. And it became the standard for the entire market. Because it delivered a different kind of experience. One not focused on technology, one not focused on features, but really one focused on the personality of the product. The iPod conveys a sense of integrity and a personality. It knows who it is. And this actually taps into something very deep about the psychology of interaction. There actually is a lot of scientific research now that shows that the structures in our brains that are engaged when we use a complex technological product are the same ones that are engaged when we interact with other human beings. Any product that exhibits complex behaviors taps into these same brain structures. We literally treat them as if they were people. So the challenge for us as designers is to create something that is going to present that sense of integrity and authenticity that we expect from other human beings. Build that into the design of the products that we create. Now, for those of us who work on software products, this can be something of a challenge because the way that we tend to think about software is very, very different. We tend to think about it as starting with this core of data, and then around that data we wrap some logic to process and manipulate that data. And then we take the results of those processes and we push them out through the outer shell of the user interface. And in fact, shell is a term that programmers use to describe the user interface of an application. The trouble is that this is not the model that most people have when they are using a technology product. Their model looks something more like this. There's the user interface, and then the rest of it is magic. All of that stuff that happens under the hood doesn't matter to people. But the problem is that we allow, when we build this way, starting from that core, we allow technology and features to place constraints on and dictate the experience that the product ultimately delivers. So when you think about it this way, it's no wonder that so many products fall short. It's no wonder that so few products are able to resonate with people. But I'm happy to report that this is changing. More and more organizations are starting to take a different approach to creating products and services, starting with the experience they want to deliver and working backward to the right features and the right technology to incorporate in order to deliver this experience. This is an approach that Tim O'Reilly described as designing from the outside in. And the primary tool that we use to do this is something that we call experience strategy. Experience strategy is a set of activities that happens between product strategy and product development. It is the means by which we define the experience that we want the product to ultimately deliver and use that to drive the decisions we make about features and drive the decisions we make about technology. It becomes a guidepost toward what we ultimately want the product to be and to present to users. Here's one example of what I'm talking about. This is Google Calendar. At this point, it's far and away the most popular calendar application on the web. But Google, despite being known as a very engineering-driven organization, took a very strong experiential approach to the development of Google Calendar. When they started out, when they set out to create Google Calendar, before they started talking about what their technological infrastructure needed to be, before they started working out what features they wanted to include in their product, they articulated a vision for the product. And they described it in these terms: fast, visually appealing, joyous to use, drop-dead simple. Not talking about technology, but talking about the experience that could provide this star to sail their ship by. As they moved into product development, they could adjust the choices that they were making, the trade-offs that are inevitable in every product development process, according to the experience that they ultimately wanted to deliver. And this was something that paid off for them very easily in the market. In the span of just a few months, they went from 0 to becoming one of the most popular, and now the most popular calendar application on the web. Now, I gave Microsoft a hard time about Microsoft Word, but even Microsoft is evolving how it approaches product development in this same way. The face of Windows is changing radically this year. The old Windows that we know and some people love and some people maybe not so much is going away, and it's going to be replaced with something radically different. And Microsoft has actually done a wonderful job of sharing the thinking and the insights that went into creating the experience that is going to be Windows 8 that will be released later this year. So they put this blog post up about creating the Windows 8 user experience, and they talked about how they wanted to evolve Windows to respond to the changing environment. That Windows XP screenshot that we saw was a product that was designed for a very different time than the time that we live in now. And they wanted to create a product for this time and this context. And so they looked around and they identified a handful of trends that they really wanted to respond to. Ways in which the PC is really different now from what it was when the Windows user interface was originally conceived. Nowadays, we are connected all the time. The PCs are connected all the time. universal connectivity and network access is a standard part of the computing experience. People, not files, are the center of activity, as social networking has gone from a niche buzzword to becoming an integral part of almost every product. The rise of mobile PCs over desktop PCs, the assumption now is that most computers are going to be laptops or tablets rather than something where you're sitting at a desk using them. And recognizing that content is both on the PC and on the cloud, and enabling people to work with content across both. So in response to these trends, they developed their eXperience strategy for Windows 8. Fast and fluid, long battery life, apps that are focused on targeted scenarios. This is one of I think one of the biggest changes between Windows 8 and earlier versions of Windows is that they have made it a design goal to reduce the feature set of a Windows application, to give users a broad set of tools that are focused on very specific tasks in specific contexts. Live tiles is an aspect of the new user experience that I'll show you in a moment. Enabling apps to work together more effectively, enabling you to roam your experience between PCs, recognizing that most people don't use just one device, and making your PC work like a device, not a computer. And again, this is something that Apple has been doing for a long time, is really rethinking the computer in terms of consumer electronics, rather than in the traditional sort of IT terms. And so as a result, this interface is giving way to this one. And this is the Windows computing experience of the future. It's going to be really interesting, I think, to see how people relate to and respond to this user experience, because it is so radically different. It's going to be interesting to watch. So Microsoft is a platform vendor, right? And one challenge for them is that they have to work with, and they have to create standards that will work for a very broad range of users and a very broad range of developers who will be creating the software that works within the context of this larger experience that they're trying to create. And so what this means is that Microsoft has to design for integration, for tools to be able to work together effectively, and for the tool and the platform to integrate smoothly with one another. And these are the challenges that really every platform vendor faces. But again, increasingly, they are approaching this from an experiential point of view. Take the example of, obviously the biggest new platform of the age, Facebook. And when Facebook opened up their platform to developers, they provided developers with this documentation in the form of guiding principles. So not just technical documentation, but they also really wanted developers to understand what they thought made for a good experience on Facebook. Our vision for Facebook platform is to empower the world's developers to make the web more social for users. To help you get a better idea of what we mean, we're publishing our guiding principles for social applications. So again, no reference here to technology. It is entirely about the experience that they feel these applications should deliver. And they broke it down into these 10 guiding principles in these 3 broad categories: meaningful, trustworthy, and well-designed. Facebook believes that applications should be social, useful, expressive, engaging, and they define these in very specific terms. Secure, respectful, transparent, clean, fast, and robust. And so any developer can take this and apply it as they're making choices about the technology and about the features that they incorporate into their product. And as long as they stay aligned with these principles, their product will integrate effectively with Facebook, and it will make the experience more successful for users, and as a result, make the product more successful. And here's one final word from Steve Jobs. This is something that he said shortly after he returned to Apple in 1997. He said, the question you have to ask yourself is, how does your technology fit into a cohesive, larger vision? You've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out where you're going to sell it. Back in 1997, there were very few people who thought this way. Apple, of course, has since found phenomenal success in applying this approach to their product development. And now we are seeing lots of other organizations like Google and Facebook and Amazon and eBay, and you can just go on and on. This is becoming an essential part of product strategy, to understand the experience that we're trying to deliver through our product, because in a very fundamental way, the experience is the product that we deliver and the true source of value for our customers. Thank you all very much for your attention. I think I just answered that one. I mean, it's something that a lot of startups now. Again, so I live in San Francisco. My company does a lot of work with startups in Silicon Valley, and it used to be, you know, the famous idea of a Silicon Valley startup is two guys in a garage, right? And one guy is going to be the business guy, and the other guy is going to be your technology guy. So in the case of Apple, when Apple started out, you had Steve Jobs was going to run the business, and Steve Wozniak was the technical wizard who created the Apple II. And so those two guys were the two guys who started the company. These days, when you talk to investors in Silicon Valley, they are looking for three. You have to have a business guy, you have to have a technology guy, and you have to have a design guy. Technology has become such a commodity in Silicon Valley that unless you are doing something really, really cutting edge, the technology component is much less important. Obviously, you need great technology to deliver a product successfully to the market, but really what investors are looking for are companies that have a vision for the experience that they want to deliver, and they want to know that there is a part of the founding team that has that vision and is going to deliver that vision through the product, because that's how in a landscape where technology has become a commodity, that is the only effective means to compete. So what's the next step? Mass customization. I don't think it is so much about mass. I mean, certainly there are certain kinds of products for which mass customization is exactly right, the right approach. But I think that what we find in the work that we do is that people fall into broad categories. So in the course of doing user experience work, before we do any design work, we'll go out and talk with your customers and talk with the people who use the product or service to try to understand their behavior and their psychology. And what we find in doing that work is that generally it's true that there is not just one type of user, But often there are many types, but not a whole lot of types. It often comes down to around 6 to 8 different types of users, different behavior patterns that we see in the research that we do. We define those behavior patterns through a tool that we call personas. And personas are essentially fictional characters that represent a particular behavior pattern and a particular set of motivations. And we use those patterns to set the strategic direction for a product or a service. So mass customization would take that to the extreme, and you would potentially have many different patterns involved. But generally what we find is that with 6 to 8 patterns, that will capture the vast majority of the needs of your customers. Marketing people often think only about visual effects and creation, which are frequently leading to bad user experience. How can we challenge that? It is a huge challenge. It definitely is. It's a battle that we fight every day. There are so many marketing people who are in love with shiny things, and it is very difficult to educate them, help them understand that the fact of the object being beautiful is not necessarily the source of its value. And so it's always this process of education, of helping them understand that our goal as product designers is to appeal to that underlying psychology and those behavior patterns, and building those patterns into the products that we create. Certainly we don't want to create ugly products, but the conversation that we need to have is about how we deliver value, and we deliver value through attention to experience, and not just attention to aesthetics and beauty. Can we apply the same principles on services instead of products? Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, we don't really, at Adaptive Path, we don't draw a distinction between products and services. The methodology that we use is exactly the same. In fact, we are now doing work on services that don't even have a digital component to them, because the principles apply regardless of the context. The output is often very different, and we often need to partner with someone who has a competency in creating these non-digital artifacts that create experiences. But in the work that we've done in creating retail experiences and healthcare experiences and so forth, what we found is that this same pattern of identifying the user behaviors that we want to create, building those into a strategy that drives the shape of the service offering, and then creating the support systems that allow you to deliver that service offering. That pattern is exactly the same regardless of whether it's a product or a service, regardless of whether it's digital or non-digital. Okay, I think that was the last question. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jesse.